New season, new me. I'm going for a whole new wardrobe, a whole new bag of tricks.
And me, I'm sticking to earth tones.
That's one of my favorite things about you.
But here we are. It is Book 2, Earth. The days I have been waiting for.
Season 2, I'm feeling the deuce. What can I say?
Well, we're going to be playing with lots of rocks, lots of dirt, some sand maybe even. All types of rocks.
I miss the Hallie-san days of mud. I don't really.
I have no idea what that means. None.
You're ahead of me because I have no idea what Avatar means, what Avatar holds, what the plot holds, what the plot thickens.
Book 2 is where it gets real. It's where, frankly, just they fall into the writing. The writing is so good.
Where does the time go, everybody?
It's Kaylee.
And I'm AJ, and you're listening to
Atlas Shrugged, the Avatar The Last Airbender podcast.
The only Avatar The Last Airbender podcast that matters.
And we say that's because we're the only married couple doing it, I guess.
We want you to give preferential treatment to those who are wedded in holy matrimony.
This is a do-together activity.
And only those who are wedded in holy matrimony.
Do an activity together.
Even if they can't buy a house. Okay.
Hashtag millennials.
So what were we talking about? Right. Okay. Avatar. It's this show. And if you're a millennial, you probably remember it coming into your TV screens. And more recently, it came into your Netflix screens. This is Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's a show that I've never seen, but that my wife loves. So we're at season 2. But before we talk about season 2, episode 1,
which is the Avatar state, should we talk about
the Avatar state, which until recently was West Virginia.
It was? I was going to say, should we talk about what state we're in?
We have been in a couple of states since last time we talked.
So
quite a few states.
Interestingly enough, as AJ and I were talking about starting this new season, we realized that over the course of the first season, for all of you who have listened to us and been through the first book of Avatar together, thanks. We were actually in 3 different states, living in 3 different states as we put that first season together. So now we're in a brand new one.
Brand new state.
And it feels fitting because book 2 is Earth, and y'all, we live in Colorado now.
And Colorado has some pronounced Earth.
It's quite big.
Yeah.
If you look west, it's kind of spiky, rolling.
They call it mountainous, and it means that it has mountainous aspects to it.
Specifically, the mountains
Mountainous
in the
capabilities. That one, yeah. So I think they call them the Great Smoky Mountains.
That's not at all correct, honey. Nope. This is the Rocky Mountains.
Well, if you look west here in the realm, in the Avatar universe, you see a big red splotch on the map, and that's called
the Fire Nation, I presume.
The Fire Nation, right. So if you haven't seen it in a while, season 2, episode 1 begins as we look westward to the Fire Nation. The Earth Kingdom contemplates its fate. The military aspect, the way they just hit the gas with the socio-political stuff is crazy, because you have these 3 bearers of power. You have these 3 power wardens that are immediately at odds at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, because if you remember, right at the end of season 1, Aang went full Avatar state, and they had the whole moon problem, but ultimately the Northern Water Tribe prevailed over the Fire Nation invasion. And
they did, but the Fire Nation, they didn't like it. They didn't like it that much.
They didn't like Who didn't like it?
They didn't like a military defeat, these Avatar Nation folks.
Oh, no.
They got a chip on their shoulder.
You know, the water tribes, it seems, there's like a big one up north and a pretty small one where Sokka and Katara came from down south, and that's all we really know right now. But yeah, I think that battle hit hard, and this episode opens with his dream. So
it took a toll on Aang, too.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't remember, this is my favorite show growing up, and AJ has never seen it. So
I've never seen this. This is why I sound so speculative.
A little bit.
It's
like that show you watched, The Curse of Oak Island.
The elusive chase for the shiny gold thing begins.
I would just bet that out of the pretty awesome audience, we're a 6-continent audience, y'all. Thanks for listening to us.
Yes, shout out to North America, Europe, South America, our folks in Africa, Oceania, which is basically like the realm of the Avatar, except New Zealand is on the other side to the west. What's up, Oceania? And we also have Asia. So, I mean, it's intercontinental. It's
Antarctica, where are you at?
Antarctica, we know there's nothing else to do. Just listen to the show.
Who knows? The Avatar might be like frozen in a ball of ice over there or something.
You could save the world.
But I bet somebody out there also likes Oak Island. I get that it's just digging a lot of holes, but
They're never going to find the treasure. They just won't.
while it fits with the Earth Nation vibe, that ain't what we're here to talk about. So, Book 2, Episode 1 opens with Aang in a dream.
Is it a dream or is it a flashback?
That's a good question. So, what makes you think it's a flashback?
Well, I just thought he was having a nightmare about what he had gone through at the end of book 1.
Well, absolutely. Okay, so you saw the water monster, right?
Yeah.
So definitely flashback to these moments. The second room he is in looks like the fire sage's temple back from the solstice episodes.
I couldn't tell a difference between it and the Fire Sage's temple.
So yeah, that's what I mean. I think you're right. It is likely a flashback / dream because he is out of body. So it's important. You can recognize that it's a dream because he's not experiencing it from first person or experiencing it from first person. He's watching himself in the Avatar state in these places with unwieldy power.
Is he like contemplating what that would have been like had he been able to access his power like unlimitedly? Everybody's accessing their power unlimitedly in this show. Okay, so we meet 2 people, right? And we meet the first person, and the first person we meet is General Fong, right?
Yeah, General Fong is, I guess, I'm assuming from his Earth attire, he's an Earth Nation general, military general. Mm-hmm. He and some of the soldiers and others are at this tower when Team Avatar arrives. They greet them with fireworks.
And he's a big, powerful guy. And you want to know how to tell big, powerful guys? Is their hat.
Oh, yeah. Hat tells all.
The more superfluous the hat, the higher your social station.
And I've been watching a lot of Downton Abbey, so, you know, the tall top hats, they really say something.
They make a statement.
So General Fong greets Team Avatar like, you know.
General Fong does what?
Greets Team Avatar. He welcomes them as you welcome all honorable people with fireworks. He really put on a show for him.
Right, but I feel like he had ulterior motives for putting on a show.
And we figured that out pretty quickly because he, like others, have heard of the miraculous things that Aang was able to do in the Avatar state when the Fire Nation attacked the Northern Water Tribe.
And he's like, I want a piece of that.
And he seems to want a piece of that immediately. So let's talk about that. Aang wakes up from this dream. He meets this general. Mm-hmm. Who knows if we're supposed to trust him, but we think that at this point, Earth Nation is our ally because they are not the Fire Nation.
Earth Nation's on our side, man.
Right. So what did you think of General Fong telling Aang that he's ready to face the Fire Lord now?
It's bad leadership. Okay, because he's like big chief of the Earth Nation. He's got a militaristic mind about like what's going on across the coast, right? But he's saying this is urgent because I know people who are making the ultimate sacrifice, right? In the aggression.
Right.
With the Fire Nation.
And he's really the first person they've met in a long time that is in the Earth Nation and dealing with the daily task of winning this war against the Fire Nation. Because Team Avatar has been flying around, obviously they just had this huge conflict, but they, I think, to this point have had many places of refuge and places of rest. And they arrive at this place that they're, I think, assuming is safe.
And this guy's like, clock in immediately.
Oh, yeah. He's like, I've heard about what you can do. And he leaves no room for the Avatar to speak. He simply runs with you've been gone 100 years. People have been dying in this war. You have just shown and proven to the world that you can absolutely use this power to win. So now, 12-year-old boy, we're going to win now.
But the reason why I said it's bad leadership is because like there's no books in the library about like what it takes to get in the Avatar state? Or is he like, hey man, I know you saw me pick this car off of the metaphorical child, but you should only know that strength kicks in when a child is underneath the car.
Right. Superhuman.
Do you know what I'm referencing there? That superhuman strength that you get when you lift a car?
I mean, it's like one of those things you hear, the colloquial stories that go around. I heard a mom lifted up a bus one time off of her kid. I never verified.
Oh, it's cited. It's scientific. So the Earth Nation general is like, listen, I guess this makes sense. He's like, listen, this is a matter of life and death because he's seen the casualties come home. He's like, this is urgent. I don't care if you get a migraine headache or whatever. You're going to be in Avatar state.
Right. So it's a desperate mindset. And he isn't worried about those consequences because he hasn't considered them, right? This is the first like true hope and answer that he sees. It's this great power. He's the Avatar of legend. He's the only airbender that exists. And I think that's super important because this whole season is going to be a really interesting discussion of what people's expectations are and what the stereotypes are of the different nations and how their cultures differ.
Well, we get such a good glimpse into where each nation stands in this first episode.
Right, except Aang is the only speaker for the airbenders.
And Aang can't say no. He literally can't.
Because he's expected to be a representation of all four nations.
The best he does is like, let me think about it. And then he's like, all right. If it is somehow working towards the greater good, Aang can't say no, even if the people who are around him are misguiding him.
Right. So Katara really stands up for him in that moment, right? He's the Avatar. He's going to pursue his destiny his way. Aang and Sokka.
He's going to try to.
He's going to try to. Mm-hmm. I mean, Katara and Sokka just were with him and also have also done incredible things. But the fact is, when they get to the Earth Nation, they are greeted as children and they're going to play their role and be told what to do. And Katara, I think, is super brave. She stands up for Aang, but then also has that conversation with him. Like, I know that guy, General Fong, doesn't understand what he's talking about. But I need you to hear that as powerful as that is, seeing you in that state is really scary. And Aang considers that, but dude, the pressure is on and he's like, I have to try it. He is so under the weight of, I've been gone 100 years and everything feels urgent too.
He has some catching up to do.
Certainly. So he has this dream and then they jump into these, very sketchy, let's try to activate it. They try some tea, they try some rituals to get Aang into the Avatar
Kaylee, were
state.
you literally about to blow past this tea scene? and not let me talk about it?
No, of course not.
Aang is my life. Try this stimulant tea, and you're like, it's 2 p.m. I'll do that.
What's in this? 3 shot of espresso. Okay.
I love espresso.
I think it's more like they said, here, try this, without telling him what it was.
This will make you want to fight real good, kid.
So they give him a stimulant and end up with what I think is a really good depiction of what people considered a, quote, wild child in the early 2000s.
That boy ain't right.
Then we go the opposite end. They're like, let's try some deep meditation. And that just results in falling asleep, not what we want.
Yeah, when you're fighting our global adversaries, we're going to need you to be awake for that.
And finally, they try some cultural ceremony.
Third time's the charm. Except nothing fits.
Oh, everything is so big.
Did they get all of this stuff from like the surplus bin at the Earth Nation?
Or maybe whoever wore them last was larger.
They pulled it out of the lost and found from the last time they had a Four Nations conference.
Yeah, they were all
The last time the Earth Nation hosted a Four Nations conference.
It was all brown.
Yeah, do you have this in a youth medium?
A new character who introduces us to a side of the Fire Nation culture we've not seen before.
We knew that the Fire Nation were sometimes uncouth, but here we're seeing a sort of brutal aspect to them.
Yeah, so the introduction of Princess Azula is pretty transparent about who she is. You see her immediately. She's commanding. She is the commander of that ship. She dismisses everyone, and the first conversation we see her have is literally just threatening the captain of the ship's life. He's like, hey, the tides are coming in. We're not going to be able to bring the ship to port
He's
tonight.
trying to be scientific about it.
Right, he's trying to be the captain of the ship.
The captain of the ship, and now we've got some middle manager coming up, right? Because she's not like the big chieftain, but she's letting her familial relationship kind of get to her head.
So it's super important observation. We have seen some of the patriarchal tendencies of the Water Nation because, you know, with Master Paku originally telling Katara, sorry, girls can't do that. This is where we are introduced to a different culture's dynamic. You know that Zuko is the prince of the Fire Nation. We are introduced for the first time to Azula, who is the princess of the Fire Nation. She is Zuko's older sister, and I think that you can tell that a little bit just from the way she's drawn, because it's hard to do that other than, as we've said before, character height is a determination of age.
You must be this tall to run this army.
And clearly, she has some command, right? But what I think I would like you to pay attention to as we walk into this season is, why is Azula acting the way that she is?
Okay, I'll pay attention to that.
So she's the oldest teenager that we've met so far. She's wielding some great power. And what's going on with Zuko?
Zuko's been exiled.
Right. So it is now the anniversary of him being exiled from the Fire Nation. And Iroh is like kind of funny about that. Like, I'm sure he only banished you because he cares.
Immediately regretted saying that.
Well, this is the first time that it's clear that Iroh is not just going to come out and be like, my brother's a jerk because it's his nephew's father. But that's clearly like...
He's playing politics a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. I think Zuko is, from the look of the introduction in this episode, he is about to go on a new arc examining what honor he actually has in the Fire Nation, what that means to him. So Azula is an interesting dynamic. So Zuko is presumably the inheritor of the Fire Nation. His father is the Fire Lord, the leader of the nation.
Yeah, but Zuko has some daddy issues. Zuko to me is like, what if the prodigal son like never used the phone booth, or like when he tried to, like his dad didn't answer?
yeah, he's been banished. And Azula is the older sister, though she is not the successor to the throne, and seems to have an even less angst and more rage.
Rage is one way to describe it.
So after Azula really shows us her dominance and her leadership style on the ship,
A little abrasive.
just slightly. We saw Azula practicing shooting lightning out of her fingertips. What did you think of that?
Pretty cool.
So I think this is a perfect demonstration, like, right, the two old women who are twins say, one hair out of place. Like, there is an expectation of perfection.
With Azula?
I think that it is a Fire Nation thing, especially for Fire Nation royalty. They are expected to be perfect in form, perfect in manner, and I think it's clear that both Azula and Zuko have been put under the weight of that pressure. However, unlike his sister, Zuko bears a scar literally from the abuse of his father every day and is not allowed to participate in his culture fully at this point.
It probably makes family portraits really awkward.
Like super awkward, you'd think. So, what do you think of Azula?
I think two things. Azula has a point to prove, A, and B, she will trample over anyone to prove that point.
Very astute. So, clearly trying to prove a point to who, do you think?
To the leadership, to her dad. That's a complicated relationship.
Definitely. And it seems that the first way
Never hire family.
Never hire family. It seems like her first shot at doing that is to just like straight up lie to her brother.
She's doing what the Fire Lord would want her to do in that.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely. Because even though she's the oldest teen we've encountered, I do want to, and similarly how I'm always like, they're telling this 12-year-old kid what to do, Aang. She is probably only like 16 in reality. So she has been under the influence of not just the Fire Lord, but the pressures in a palace after her brother has been banished and a few years have gone by. And I think that her treatment of Zuko is much more a reflection of how he is perceived within her circle than we don't know anything about her, right? So we can only assume that she's treating him like a pawn.
Through her, we're learning how Fire Nation tides of sentiment have shifted away from Zuko. We're learning the extent of his alienation. Like it was, you know what I mean? If Zuko was sitting there complaining to Uncle Iroh, like, I've been banished, we could either take that as Zuko being Zuko, or we could take that seriously and be like, oh, Zuko really is banished. He's not just... He's not just out of sorts.
Right, and he's out of sorts because he's constantly worried, wondering if his father cares about him. Well, his father clearly abused him. That's a complex thing for a teenager to go through. And then, what do you know? His sister...
Probably didn't pay him overtime either.
Probably. I don't know if they get paid for that. I think it's just like you wear the crown kind of thing.
We're still awaiting the results. We sent a FOIA to the Fire Nation to get a hold of their benefits package, but they haven't responded to our request.
We'll keep you posted. So, AJ, similarly to how Zhao ultimately was the big antagonist of Book 1, we are told right at the beginning of Book 2, yep, there's still Zuko. Yep, he still wants to capture the Avatar, but he has this foil, this antagonistic foil, who turns out to actually be his sister, who we clearly don't like already. We don't like her way more than we don't like Zuko.
She acts as like a frame of reference for like how crappy the Fire Nation can actually be.
And if I were to have you thrown overboard, would the tides think twice about smashing you against the rocky shore?
So Aang has a night to think and comes to the decision that after everything they've tried, he only thinks that he can get into the Avatar state if he or someone he loves is in real, actual, life-threatening danger.
And on the basis of that, he says pretty much, you know what, Earth Nation? I can't do what you're asking of me, right?
Psych.
Big psych.
What he didn't know, in being honest, that the only time he's been in the Avatar state was when he was in extreme danger. This Earth Nation general immediately is like, all right, if that's what we got to do, and sets up an attack.
Just unwise.
Unwise. So Katara stuck to her feeling and was like, I can't watch you go into the Avatar state or try to do this. So she stayed in her room. And
she's like, do you remember book 1 at all?
That just happened.
It literally just happened.
But, I mean, this was the last thing that Sokka or Aang were expecting. Like, they went in with good intentions. We appreciate the cause, but this isn't the right way to go about it. We don't think it's going to work. The general takes that as, all right, then we have to make it work.
It worked! It worked!
Things get earthbendy.
For the first time we've really seen since King Boomy, and it's a completely different style of earthbending. So all of these soldiers get up and just lift out these huge discs of earth.
Something tells me that they stayed up all night the night before. Like, there was somebody in Aang's room, they were like, is Aang asleep? All right, guys, from the top. Now you take the disc, you toss it across. No, you tossed it the wrong way.
This is ultimate frisbee. And we see...
They froth all night. At the slightest resistance. Really reactionary, you know. The earthbender guy is like, well,
what you didn't understand about the situation is we're going to do this. So they do. They straight up just come at him, attack him with some powerful earthbending. And that's like the moment, even the first time I watched it as a kid, it was like, oh, Aang doesn't know how to earthbend.
okay.
Aang goes about his like classic style. He is so defensive.
Yeah, he can hold people off, but as far as like mounting an offensive against the Earth Nation.
But he's doing a good job. They are trying to create danger, real danger, and he is maintaining, you are not my enemy, I am not your enemy. I will not fight you.
Extreme frothing.
The danger is not real until Katara has her little inkling and just walks downstairs and then realizes that Aang and Sokka are literally being attacked. And it's like that. General Fong sees her, exploits that weakness, that relationship, and turns his offensive directly on Katara.
Katara, out of this whole show, is the one who has to defend herself so frequently.
So frequently.
Why does everyone always like make Katara's life so hard for her?
Well, she is accompanying the Avatar. She's the only girl in the situation right now, and she's got to have her wits about her, got to be tough. And she thankfully just learned from one of the greatest waterbending masters in the world. But as we saw very quickly, she only had so much water, and then she's going to get buried. That's the fear.
Aang is like, you want to see Avatar State? I'll show you Avatar State.
It's sad, but he told him it would work, and Fong was willing, like you said about Azula earlier, to stomp over anyone in his way to accomplish that goal. And he didn't care about putting Katara in danger.
Everybody in this episode is on a power trip. We have Azula, drunk on power, telling her underling that she's going to throw him off a boat. We have somebody trying to morally imperil Aang in order to get him to activate, get him to, do this thing. But it's also foolish. All of this power is wielded so foolishly.
Right. Because as soon as you see the glowing tattoos and the glowing eyes, he lets Katara go immediately. She's fine. But the point is that
That doesn't make it better.
No, a grown person was willing to whether he really put her in danger or not, to threaten her for his own gain. And that worked, but Aang tried to explain that he does not have control of his power in that state.
I think both that interaction and the way that Azula is, like, she's a complete church burner.
We will burn Utica to the ground.
General Fong, that's his name, right?
Yes, General Fong.
General Fong. I knew that. General Fong's no better. It speaks to the direness of the military situation that they're on, but also to like the folly of like having everything, of like making decisions with like such dire consequences is like whatever decision you arrive at is going to be flawed.
Yeah. And that power is so attractive because they've been at war for so long and they've lost so many people and circumstances are so dire and everybody believes that they are in the right. So Fong is all drunk with this power. He sees the glowing tattoos and he's like, it worked! Meanwhile, Aang is just destroying things. Wreckage is coming. And then he meets Roku.
The ghost of Christmas past.
Aang has another dream.
This was like, hold on, I'm eating a brownie. I try to make this brownie. Okay. Dear listener, in my hubris, I tried to make this brownie. I didn't have any milk, so I used coffee creamer instead, and it had like a chemical effect with the brownie mix. I made the brownie really puffy. And like kind of spongy. Like it's now like a brownie that comes from like a really spongy place of my heart.
Like a spongy fudge cake.
Exactly. It's too doughy. It tastes like a regular brownie plus like whatever it would taste like if you just took a bite out of a wrestling mat. And I'm not saying that to its detriment. It's still a brownie. It's still good.
It was good. I ate like half a tray.
That's how I know I didn't completely mess up, is if half the tray of brownies gets eaten.
We're very fair about sharing these things.
We are.
So let me rephrase. It's not a dream. He has a spirit experience with Roku. So Roku appears on his flying dragon and tells him some knowledge we did not know before that is vitally important. We sense that there could be some dire consequences to activating the avatar state without knowledge or willpower to control it yet.
He could end the family tree right there.
If he gets killed in the avatar state, it's over. No more avatar cycle.
Good luck saving the world now.
So this to me...
We don't want that to happen.
is like Roku's literally in the spirit world, sees this happening and is like, oh no, Aang.
He yanks him up
There's some things we need to talk about.
with his celestial claw machine.
So this knowledge, I think, ultimately calms him. He's like, all right.
You got to be zen about this.
Got to come back to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy that he leaves that state. There's like broken towers. All of the other soldiers are just like thrown to the wind. There's some real damage that's been done. And General Fong is immediately just like, we just need to learn how to control you. And luckily, Team Avatar at that point is like, you're crazy.
It's crazy to try to control somebody like that. Even crazier still when you're trying to control somebody and they're your brother.
Plot twist.
Is it? Is it a plot twist?
It's about to be. Iroh is very skeptical. But
he's also like a ride or die for Zuko.
Right. He tried to give Zuko his 2 cents, but at the end of the day, If Zuko was going to go, Iroh was going to go with him. Iroh says, family sticks together. And then you see this beautiful little sepia goldish flash of a little boy with a man's hand on his shoulder. And I just want to say that, AJ, so that you remember it for later. Oh, how touching. Family sticks together. You see that little frame. And then Iroh and Zuko walk down the winding trail to the loading onto the ship.
They're about to go on an all-expenses-paid trip to a vacation resort with Azula.
Azula has told her brother that there is a sinister plot against the Fire Lord and the Fire Nation, and that the Fire Lord has changed his mind. Which Iroh says, I've never known him to do that before, but the Fire Lord.
Like, I'll play along, because if Zuko's going to fall for this, then Iroh's going to be along for the ride.
So family is all that matters. Mm-hmm. He's had a change of heart. Zuko, father wants you home. And so there they are, showing up at the ship. The brigade is lined up on either side, and Azula is at the top of the boardwalk.
And yeah, good reminder, just if you're going to have a dastardly, nefarious plot against your own brother and your own uncle, then hire somebody to walk them up the plank who's going to keep your secret.
I'm not on Azula's side by any means, but I did have some sympathy for him at the beginning when she was like,
would the tides think twice about smashing you against the rocky shore?
But clearly he's not taking stuff seriously.
This is the same underling?
Yes. So the guy that you saw her talk to at the beginning of the episode, like, would you rather the tides decide your fate or me? Yeah, he clearly didn't quite hear that message.
Do you think he was just trying to get back at Azula? Do you think he did that on purpose and he was just running like a big game in order to screw her over? Because what does it do to his side, his logistics as the captain of that ship?
I mean, his cartoon eyes said, oops, I really didn't mean to do that. But I think that's a good theory because...
I got theories.
Yeah, right? Because we've talked about this dynamic, prince and princess, a little bit, but that might show that there's some quiet loyalty to Prince Zuko.
Or he's just like, you want me to be a disgruntled employee? Fine, you'll see a disgruntled employee. Completely sabotages the mission. That's what I like to think happened anyway.
But Dragon of the West is in the house, so Iroh just kicks butt while Zuko just runs after his sister.
I was sitting there watching this being like, did Iroh just kick a girl in the face? I'm pretty sure he just kicks Azula in the face.
Well, he does a lot more than that when Zuko and Azula really get into fighting. And you see that she is a completely different type of fighter. She likes the high ground. Mm-hmm. She likes to toy with whoever she's fighting. In this case, I think that adds to the sibling rivalry. We see that she is perhaps a little bit more advanced in her firebending than her brother, and that she's taken some different tracks. But then...
she's an honor student at the firebending school.
Most definitely, Azula is top of her class.
She was voted most likely to throw fire at her brother in the yearbook.
Y'all, he hasn't even met May and Ty Lee yet. So, Azula, though, comes at him aggressive. She straight up claws his face. But as soon as he stumbles, there's a moment when you realize what you observed about her earlier. She is willing to go to any means. Azula makes a great show of making her brother feel absolutely terrible about himself. And then as soon as he stumbles, shoots a lightning bolt at him.
Cold.
This moment, I did not understand really why it was so significant when I was a kid watching it, because I didn't understand how lightning worked. But did you notice how Iroh grabbed her fingers when she was going to shoot lightning?
I did. What does that do to the lightning?
So right before Iroh kicks her in the face, as you said, he grabs her fingers, roots himself, and then points his finger in another direction. So Iroh just did what they call redirect lightning.
I was just gonna ask, did he did he get zapped a little bit while he did that? Did the lightning course through him?
The lightning definitely followed a path through him, but did not hurt him. He stopped her from shooting a lightning bolt through her brother and likely killing him. And then, yeah, gave her the boot.
What pow? It I feel I'd have to rewatch it, but I feel like his heel just lands squarely on her chin. And I'm sitting here like, that's your niece.
Don't feel bad for Azula.
Oh, I wasn't feeling bad for her.
I don't know. Let it be for now.
Let it marinate.
Yeah.
Okay, who else is letting it marinate?
Well, Team Avatar seems fully seasoned.
They're fully seasoned. The juices have soaked in. They know what they're going to do.
General Fong, I guess, finally lets the tough guy stuff down, and he's at least like, are you sure you don't want an escort to the city? And they're like, nah, dude, we are good on our own. So they hop up on Appa.
He would have been so annoying if he had asked him for an escort. He'd have been like, even if he was driving the whole time, he'd have been like, so, is it possible that anybody else can get in the Avatar state? You think any of my men could, do you think you could teach them to get in the Avatar state? Do you think if I pushed you off of this cart right now, you would get in the Avatar state?
I hope that General Fong has seen what it takes to get Aang in the Avatar state and will think about his actions.
Do you think, if you were sleeping and I went up behind you and I went, whoa, do you think that would get you in the Avatar state?
Oh, the afterglow.
You don't want to mess with Aang when he's glowed up.
Oh, no, no, no. So, Team Avatar, they load up on Appa, and away they go on to the next adventure. Which brings us back to
the surface of the earth.
A wanted poster, where Azula's real mad that her uncle kicked her in the face and over the edge of the boat. And she is out for their heads. So there they are on a wanted poster, and she's like, anyone who sees them, bring these traitors to me. So in the last scene, we see Zuko and Iroh on the run together. They kneel down in the woods by the riverside, take knives to their top knots, cut them off.
I can see Iroh getting pulled over by Fire Nation. He's like, you must have me confused with my brother, Zyro.
Oh my God, you have no idea. We're going to have so many fun disguises in this season, especially this is the moment where we see Iroh and Zuko take a different path. Not only is he banished, but now he's a traitor. And anyone who's read the Kyoshi novels knows that the hairstyles of the Fire Nation are very much a part of your outward expression of honor. Everything is just so. And so this moment with them at the river is really them severing that tie. Not only for a disguise, I'm sure, but because they truly are not protected. They are not people of the Fire Nation at this point. They are enemies.
They're shedding that. It's like a haircut for your soul.
For the soul. We'll see you next time for episode 2, The Cave of Two Lovers.
That sounds like it will be a mani-pedi for the soul.
With a little acoustic musical genius.
Another musical episode?
That's it.
I don't think my heart can take that as much joy as that will bring me.
I'm trying so hard not to scream Secret Tunnel.
So until we are screaming or singing or talking or rapping Secret Tunnel, we'll have to see what this is all about. We bid you a fond adieu and thank you for listening to us for our first episode back in a really, really long time. I'm AJ.
I'm Kaylee.
And you're listening to Atlas Shrugged, the Avatar: The Last Airbender podcast.
The only one that matters.
That sounds like an opinion.
It is.